Listen here, you sick, broke woman. I've already filed for divorce. This house and the luxury car will be mine. And after that, I'm marrying my girlfriend.
My husband screamed at me, announced the divorce, and threw me out while I was seriously ill. He took everything, convinced he had won. He was wrong. Completely wrong. A few days later, he would be the one calling me in tears. Before we begin the story, please write in the comments where you're watching us from. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe so the channel can keep growing and bring you more stories. Marianne lay in the enormous bed that felt cold, while her entire body burned like fire. The thin nightgown she usually wore at home was soaked with sweat. Her throat was dry and painful. Each breath hurt. She had been bedridden for 2 days, completely helpless. That morning she had asked her husband Robert to buy fever reducers and antibiotics. But night had already fallen and Robert still hadn't returned. The big house was silent, too silent. Only the ticking of the living room wall clock could be heard, as if counting down her last bit of patience. Marianne tried to reach the glass of water on the nightstand, but her hands trembled violently. The glass slipped from her fingers, landing on the thick carpet and spilling what little water remained. Marianne could only close her eyes, fighting through the despair. Robert had changed over the past year. Ever since her husband was promoted to department head at his company, his attitude had grown arrogant. He often came home late at night and he constantly blamed Marianne for anything and everything. The breaking point came 3 months earlier, when Marianne began coughing frequently and tiring easily. Robert never showed compassion. On the contrary, he called her the sick woman. He seemed to have forgotten that Marianne was the wife who had been with him when they had nothing, when they lived in a tiny rental apartment. Even that meant nothing now. A car pulled into the front driveway. Marianne felt a slight sense of relief. Finally, Robert was back. Surely he had brought the medicine. She tried to sit up, resting her aching back against the headboard. She waited for Robert to open the door and hand her the pills. The front door slammed shut. Heavy, fast footsteps followed, not the footsteps of someone concerned but of someone angry. The bedroom door flew open, revealing Robert's tall figure. He still wore his spotless dress shirt. His hair was neatly styled, his face handsome, but the look he gave Marianne was filled with hatred. He wasn't carrying a pharmacy bag. What he had in his hands was a thick brown folder. "Robert." Marianne's voice was hoarse and weak. "Where are my medicines? My head hurts so much, sweetheart. I have a fever." Robert laughed. A harsh, cutting laugh. "Medicine? I brought something much better than medicine. This is medicine for both of us. Medicine that will fix my life," he said. He stepped forward and threw the brown folder onto the blanket covering Marianne's legs. She trembled, staring at it in confusion. "What is this, sweetheart?" "Open it unless you want to die of curiosity," Robert snapped coldly. With the little strength she had left, Marianne picked up the folder. Her trembling fingers struggled to break the seal. She pulled out several sheets of paper. On the top line she read the words, "Divorce petition." Marianne's world stopped. Her breath caught. The feverish heat drained from her body, replaced by a cold that pierced her to the bone. She looked at Robert, searching for even the slightest hesitation in her husband's eyes, but all she saw was satisfaction. "Divorce?" she whispered in disbelief. "Why are you surprised?" Robert mocked. He sat on the edge of the bed, though keeping his distance as if Marianne disgusted him. "Listen, you sick, useless woman. Do you think I want to spend the rest of my life taking care of someone like you? I've already handled everything. The divorce papers are filed." Robert stood again and paced the room like a man giving a speech. "I'm done. Done watching you cough every day. Done seeing you lying in bed with no strength. You're a burden. A burden on my life." "Sweetheart, what did I do wrong?" Marianne tried to speak, but tears welled up in her eyes. Your mistake is being poor. You can't give me anything." Robert gestured around the luxurious room. "Look at all this. This house, this expensive furniture, the luxury car in the garage. All of it will be mine. I'm the one who worked hard for everything. Everything is in my name." Marianne said nothing. Behind her gaze was something Robert couldn't read. He assumed her silence meant defeat. "Are you listening?" You're not getting a single cent property division? Don't even dream about it. You brought nothing into this house and you'll leave with nothing. Then Robert said the words that shattered what was left of Marianne's heart. When this is over, he said, face lighting up, I'm going to marry my girlfriend Jenna. She's much healthier, much prettier, and, most importantly, she understands my position as a successful man. Unlike you. Marianne closed her eyes. So there was another woman. She didn't recognize the name, but the pain was very real. I don't want to see your face in this house tomorrow morning, Robert added cruelly. You have until dawn. Leave this house by morning. Take nothing but the clothes on your sick body. Robert looked at Marianne, who was now silently crying. Hot tears streamed down her pale cheeks. Crying won't change anything. The paperwork is already filed. The process will be quick. He turned away and straightened his shirt. I'm going to sleep at the Chelsea loft with Jenna tonight. I don't want to be under the same roof as you. Tomorrow morning I'll send someone to make sure you're gone. Marianne wanted to scream, to curse him, but every bit of strength she had was gone. All she could do was watch her husband's back disappear through the doorway. The bedroom door slammed shut. A moment later the front door banged as well. Then the roar of Robert's car echoed as it left the driveway. Marianne was alone. Gravely ill, divorced, and thrown out, she cried uncontrollably. The pain in her heart was far worse than the fever burning through her body. She cried for her shattered marriage and for the cruel betrayal. After crying for 15 minutes, Marianne stopped. She gasped for air. She wiped her tears sharply. In the middle of the pain, something else rose inside her. Something cold, hard, and calculated. Her once pale face had now hardened. She reached under the pillow. It wasn't the pillow she normally used. It was an extra pillow she always kept there. Her fingers touched a hard, thin object. He pulled it out. It was a high-end smartphone, far more advanced than the old phone she usually kept on the nightstand. That phone was her only secret, something Robert didn't even know existed. It had no lock pattern. It opened with her fingerprint. The screen lit up, showing a blank white background. There were no social media apps, only encrypted business applications. Marianne opened the single contact saved on the device, labeled Director Alice. She pressed the call button. Her heart pounded, not from fever but from the rage building inside her. The call connected on the first ring. On the other end came the calm, professional voice of a woman. Good evening, Mrs. Marianne. You're calling at this hour. Are you all right? I was told you weren't doing well. Marianne took a deep breath, trying to control her trembling voice. Director Alice, she answered, her voice hoarse but icy cold. Contingency plan. Activate it. There was a brief silence. Then the director's voice turned serious. Understood, ma'am. What happened? I was thrown out, Marianne replied. Robert divorced me. He thinks I'm a useless, sick, penniless woman. By God, what nerve from Mr. Robert, murmured Director Alice. Director, I'm really bad. I have a very high fever. I need a medical evacuation. I don't want to go to a regular hospital. Come to the house and pick me up. Bring the private medical team from St. Angel Private Clinic, no sirens. Do it quietly. I don't want anyone to notice. Understood, ma'am. The VVIP medical team will be there in 30 minutes. I'll come personally. Can you hold on? Marianne looked at the divorce papers on the blanket. With what little strength she had left, she crumpled the document in her hand. I have to hold on, Director. The game has just begun. She hung up. Her body kept trembling from the fever, but her eyes now gleamed with a sharp, icy clarity in the darkness. Robert had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had thrown his own wife out of the house. He had no idea he had expelled the owner of Marianne Corporation, a global corporation with a monthly net profit of $1,500,000. Marianne waited in suffocating silence. Each tick of the wall clock sounded like a hammer strike. She gripped her secret phone tightly. Her mind was chaos. She feared Robert might return suddenly. She feared the medical team might be delayed. Her body continued shifting between chills and unbearable heat. Exactly 25 minutes later, her phone vibrated silently. It was a message from Director Alice. We've arrived. The door isn't locked. The team is entering. Marianne exhaled in relief. She had predicted that Robert, arrogant as ever, wouldn't bother to lock the door. That man would never imagine his nearly bedridden wife could take action on her own. With the little strength she had, she pushed the blanket aside. Her feet touched the cold carpet. Her head spun violently. She almost collapsed but managed to hold onto the bedpost. He had to get out of there. With trembling hands, she grabbed a long coat hanging behind the door and put it on. She wasn't going to leave that house in a humiliating state. She wouldn't allow Robert to take away her dignity too. The bedroom door opened silently. Marianne startled for a second, but quickly saw two people in dark uniforms. They weren't the visible white nurse uniforms. They moved quickly and quietly. Behind them appeared Director Alice, a woman in her 50s with a firm but kind face, dressed in a flawless suit. Her expression turned deeply worried when she saw Marianne's condition. "Mrs. Marianne," she whispered. "I'm ready, Director," Marianne replied weakly. "Get Mrs. Marianne onto the portable stretcher," Director Alice ordered. The team unfolded a collapsible stretcher and gently helped Marianne lie down. "Ma'am, we're going to give you a temporary antipyretic so you'll be more comfortable during transport," one member of the team said. Marianne simply nodded. She felt a small prick in her arm and then a cold sensation spreading through her skin. As they lifted her, she looked one last time at the ceiling of the bedroom, the room she had decorated herself, the same room that had witnessed Robert's cruel transformation. They carried her out of the bedroom and through the luxurious living room. Her gaze stopped on the large wedding photo hanging on the wall, a picture where she and Robert smiled happily. That Robert, the gentle and attentive man of the past, no longer existed. Now that photo felt like mockery. "Leave everything. Don't take anything," Marianne whispered. "Of course, ma'am. We need nothing from here," Director Alice replied firmly. They exited through the front door. In the driveway there was no loud ambulance. Instead, a black armored Suburban was parked, looking more like a presidential escort vehicle. The side door slid open, revealing an interior equipped like a BVIP emergency medical unit. Meanwhile, in a luxurious Chelsea loft, Robert burst into laughter. He poured a fizzy drink into a tall glass for Jenna, a young, beautiful woman wearing a delicate nightgown. "So, tomorrow we'll officially be the owners of that big house, sweetheart?" Jenna asked flirtatiously. "Of course. I threw her out. That sick woman won't dare say anything. She has nothing. Tomorrow I'll have all the locks changed and the day after tomorrow we'll start remodeling the bedroom," Robert said, wrapping his arm around Jenna. "How exciting. Finally all of this will be ours," she exclaimed. Robert lifted his glass. "To our new life." His old phone sat on the table on silent mode. He didn't want any calls from that sick woman interrupting him. Inside the medical vehicle gliding smoothly through the night, Marianne's condition was being treated. A doctor who had been waiting inside connected in 4-line. Her temperature was 108 degrees. "This is a severe infection, but we're already taking action. We need to transport her quickly to the hospital for intensive care," the doctor said. Director Alice sat in a chair next to Marianne's stretcher, watching her pale face with deep concern. "Ma'am, stay strong. We have everything prepared at St. Angel Private Clinic." Marianne closed her eyes. The antipyretic was beginning to work, easing the dizziness. Her thoughts drifted to the past. 5 years earlier, when this entire secret began, Robert had been fired from his first job and spent months depressed. Marianne, who at the time had been just a housewife, tried to comfort him. He became sensitive about money. Out of pride, he forbade Marianne from working. "Your job is to stay home. I'm the one who's going to earn the money," he would say, even while unemployed. But Marianne, who secretly had a degree in pharmacy, felt frustrated. She had many ideas. In her spare moments between house chores, she began experimenting in the kitchen. Not to cook, but to create herbal organic skincare products. She remembered old recipes inherited from her grandmother. She used all her personal savings to buy high-quality raw ingredients. After months of trials, she managed to create a facial serum and a brightening cream with remarkable effects. She tested them on herself and the results were excellent. Robert, busy looking for work, paid no attention. All he knew was that his wife spent hours playing in the kitchen. Marianne gathered her courage and opened a small online shop. At first she sold only to acquaintances, but her products quickly gained popularity through word of mouth. Orders exploded. That was when Robert found a new job with a good salary. He began to grow arrogant. He would often see Marianne busy late into the night with her old phone answering customers. "I give you money and you're still glued to your phone. Seems like you have nothing better to do," he shouted one night. Marianne stayed quiet. She had just closed a sale worth $30,000 that same night. The turning point came when she met Director Alice at a women's entrepreneurship seminar. Marianne attended as a participant. The director was an invited speaker. She was a former executive at a multinational company who had taken early retirement. Marianne gathered the courage to approach her after the event. She showed her the products and a handwritten business proposal. Director Alice had been stunned by Marianne's potential. "This product is excellent, Miss Marianne, and your business strategy is very solid," she said at the time. In short, the director agreed to join not as an investor but as a partner. She wanted to work again and she saw Marianne's vision. Together they founded Marianne Corporation, also known as MC Holdings. Marianne was the owner and the mind behind every product. Director Alice was the CEO, the public face of the company. Marianne asked only one thing, that her name appear nowhere. She wanted to remain Robert's ordinary wife. Ironically, with the help of Director Alice's network, Marianne hoped Robert, as he succeeded in his new job, would become a better husband. But she was wrong. The more successful he became, the more arrogant he grew. Meanwhile, MC Holdings expanded explosively. From skincare products they moved into luxury fashion. The high-end clothing and accessories designed by Marianne became extremely popular in domestic and international markets. London, Paris, Shanghai, and even Tokyo. A monthly net profit of $1,500,000 was a conservative figure. That was Marianne's personal profit alone, not counting the company's revenue, which was dozens of times higher. Marianne kept all that wealth completely hidden. She continued living simply. Even when Robert wanted to buy the luxury house and the sports car, he had to request a huge bank loan. He proudly claimed he had secured that loan thanks to his excellent job performance. What he didn't know was that his failing business loan from a year earlier had been secretly acquired by an investment company, a subsidiary of MC Holdings. That meant the luxury house and the sports car he bragged about, used as collateral for that loan, no longer belonged legally to the bank but to MC Holdings, which meant they belonged to Marianne. Marianne opened her eyes. The medical vehicle was now entering the VVIP zone of the hospital. "Director," Marianne called. Her voice was still weak, but her gaze was razor-sharp. "Yes, Mrs. Marianne," Director Alice replied, moving closer. "Robert kept the house and the car. He said they were his, that they were under his name." The director gave a slight, meaningful smile. "He forgot, ma'am. Who paid off his business loan from First National Bank a year ago, when he was about to declare bankruptcy. And he also forgot," Marianne continued, "that the collateral for that loan was that house and that luxury car he brags about every day. And he certainly doesn't know," Director Alice added, "that the investment company that bought all his debt is Marianne Corporation." There was a moment of silence. The doctor and nurse inside the vehicle professionally pretended they hadn't heard that extremely sensitive conversation. "Director Alice," Marianne said, "start the asset recovery procedure." "When should I begin, ma'am?" Marianne looked at the streetlights passing by the window. "He threw me out tonight. He probably thinks I'll be on the streets tomorrow. I want him to enjoy his little victory with that woman. Give him 3 days to celebrate." Director Alice nodded. 3 days. Let's consider it the last free rent he's giving us. After 3 days our legal team will act. Exactly on the 3rd day, we'll reclaim everything that rightfully belongs to you, ma'am." "Good," Marianne replied, closing her eyes. "Now focus on treating me. I need to be healthy to watch his world fall apart. The medical vehicle stopped in a private lobby. A team of specialist doctors was already waiting. Marianne was transferred to a presidential treatment suite. Far away, Robert slept soundly in Jenna's arms, dreaming of his beautiful new life, unaware that his reality would collapse in 3 days. Victory tasted too sweet for Robert. He woke up in Jenna's luxurious Chelsea loft. The morning sun streamed through the wide windows, bathing the room in golden light. Jenna slept with her arms wrapped around him. Robert looked at her pretty face and smiled with satisfaction. He had done it. He had freed himself from the greatest burden of his life, that sick woman, Marianne. He imagined Marianne right now crying at some bus station, trying to return to her parents' modest home. He chuckled softly. She was no longer his problem. His new life began today. "Good morning, sweetheart," Jenna said in a husky, flirtatious voice. "What time is it? Has that woman already left our house?" "She definitely has," he replied with confidence. "I told her to leave before dawn. She has no other choice. She has no money and no power. She was just a weak woman living off me." Jenna smiled broadly. She got out of bed, her silk nightgown slipping off her shoulders. "Perfect. I can't wait to move in. This loft is luxurious, but that house is a palace. And I will be the queen." "Of course, sweetheart. Whatever you want," Robert said. "Come on, get ready. Today we're having breakfast in our new house. I'll tell the cleaning lady to throw away anything that belongs to Marianne. I don't want a trace of her." An hour later, Robert's luxury sports car pulled into the driveway of the big house. He stepped out wearing sunglasses like a king. Jenna walked beside him, arm in arm, full of arrogance. Robert opened the front door. "Welcome to our palace, my queen," he said. They entered. Something felt strange. The house was too quiet, and too clean. Robert expected chaos, things scattered everywhere, signs of crying, but nothing. Absolutely nothing. He headed to the bedroom and opened the door. His heart beat a little faster. The room was spotless. The bed where Marianne had lain the night before was perfectly made with crisp white sheets. There were no traces of medicine, no broken glass. Even the carpet where Marianne had dropped the water glass was completely dry and clean. "She must have cleaned," Robert muttered, confused. "I'm glad she was useful at least once," Jenna said behind him. "Useful for the last time." But Robert felt uneasy. How could Marianne with such a high fever have left everything like this? Where were the dirty sheets? He opened the closet. Marianne's modest clothes, her long dresses, her scarves, were gone. The drawers were empty too. "She really left," Robert murmured, feeling relieved. He brushed off the discomfort. Maybe she called a taxi and took a small suitcase. Better this way. A clean break. "Of course it's clean," Jenna said excitedly. "Now let's measure this room. I want to replace this bed. It's too old-fashioned. I want a round canopy bed. And these walls need repainting. I want them gold." Jenna began running through the house, her sharp voice cutting through the silence. "This sofa is horrible, replace it. This painting is tacky, throw it away. This kitchen needs a full remodel. I want an imported Italian kitchen set." Robert only smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. I'll change everything. Everything for you. Tonight we'll celebrate. I'll invite our closest friends. I'm ordering the most luxurious catering in the city." Robert grabbed his phone and called his usual premium catering service. He ordered the most expensive menu: imported Wagyu beef, fresh seafood, and premium European beverages. "Understood, Mr. Robert. The total is $2,200. Following protocol, we need a $1,000 deposit now," the employee said. Robert answered arrogantly. "Of course. Send me the invoice. I'll pay with my main credit card." He sat down on the sofa Jenna hated and opened his banking app. He tried to pay the $1,000 catering deposit, entered his credit card number and pressed the payment button. The phone processed for a few seconds. Then a red notification appeared on the screen. "Transaction denied." Robert frowned. "That's strange," he muttered. "The limit on this card is still hundreds of thousands. Must be the signal." He tried again. Transaction denied. Sweetheart, why are you taking so long? Jenna asked, busy taking selfies in the living room. One moment, sweetheart. I think the bank is having a network issue, Robert said, trying to sound calm, even as embarrassment began to creep in. He tried another credit card from the same bank. It was rejected. A cold sweat began to slide down Robert's temples. This couldn't be happening. He was a VIP client. Why were all his cards being declined? He tried his debit card. Rejected. Insufficient funds. Robert opened his eyes wide. Insufficient funds. That was impossible. His salary had been deposited 3 days earlier. He quickly closed the payment app and opened the main mobile banking app. His heart was pounding. He entered his password. The screen loaded and then a message appeared. Access blocked. Please contact your nearest branch. Robert's body went rigid. Panic started rising in his chest. This was a disaster. He couldn't get into his payroll account. He couldn't use any of his credit cards. Robert, the catering guy, just called me. He says the payment is still being rejected. This is so embarrassing. Jenna shouted, frowning. Relax, sweetheart, relax, he said while inside he was on the verge of collapsing. He suddenly remembered he still had an emergency account at another bank, an account he almost never used and that wasn't linked to any credit line. The balance wasn't high, but there must still have been a few $1,000s in it. With trembling hands he tried to pay the catering deposit from that account. Payment successful. Robert let out a long sigh of relief. At least he could save face in front of Jenna. See? It was a network problem, he said with a forced smile. It's done. The catering will get here at 7 o'clock in the evening. Perfect. Now I have to get ready to go to the beauty salon, Jenna replied, cheerful again. When Jenna left, Robert's smile vanished instantly. His face turned pale. Something was very wrong. Why was his main account blocked? Could this have anything to do with Marianne? Impossible. That stupid woman would never be capable of something like that. He swore that first thing the next morning he would call the bank and complain as loudly as he could. He would demand compensation for this humiliation. While he was pacing back and forth trying to contain his anxiety, the doorbell rang. Robert opened the door. A uniformed courier was standing there holding a large brown folder. Mr. Robert. Yes, that's me. Certified mail. Please sign here. Robert signed the receipt, closed the door and examined the folder. The sender was a law firm with a very expensive-sounding name, Central Legal Group. He assumed they were the approval documents from the court for his divorce petition. He opened it impatiently, but the contents were not family court paperwork. It was a notarized demand letter, a formal legal warning. His eyes ran quickly over the harsh, official wording. Dear Sir, on behalf of our client Marianne Corporation, we hereby notify you that you have committed a breach of contract on your business credit line. The total principal amount of $4 million has become due. You are given a period of 3 days to settle the full amount of the debt. If you fail to do so, we will immediately proceed with forced execution of your assets, namely, 1 residential property at 14 Jacaranda Street and 1 luxury sports car. The glass Robert was holding slipped from his hand and shattered across the marble floor. Sweat poured down his face. 3 days. $4 million. The house seized. No, this can't be, he whispered, shaking. I paid the installment last week. What breach? And what is Marianne Corporation? His victory celebration had suddenly turned into the beginning of a nightmare. That night, in the middle of the music and laughter with his friends and with Jenna, Robert could only pretend to smile. His mind was in chaos. He felt an invisible trap slowly tightening around his neck. He couldn't sleep at all. Beside him, Jenna slept deeply, exhausted after the little party, but in Robert's mind the words from the notice spun like a broken tape. $4 million, 3 days, forced execution, Marianne Corporation. As soon as the first light of dawn could be heard in the city, Robert jumped out of bed. His whole body ached and his eyes were bloodshot. He didn't shower, he just splashed water on his face and threw on some clothes. He no longer cared what he looked like. By 8 o'clock, just as the bank was opening, Robert was already driving his car toward the main branch of his primary bank, where he was a VIP customer. He had to clear this mess up. It had to be a bank mistake. It had to be. At 8 o'clock on the dot, right after the bank had opened, Robert almost ran inside. He skipped the line of regular customers and went straight to the VIP service counter. "I'm Robert. I want to see the branch director right now," he said loudly, slamming his VIP card down on the counter. The employee, startled, attended to him immediately. They led him to a private room. 5 minutes later, a client service manager, impeccably dressed, came in to meet him. It was not the branch director. "Good morning, Mr. Robert. How can I help you? Let me take a look at your account." "Don't beat around the bush," Robert snapped rudely. "Explain to me why all my credit cards are blocked, why my payroll account is frozen, and why I've received a ridiculous breach of contract notice." The manager calmly looked at the computer screen. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Robert." Interesting. What's interesting?" Robert shouted. The manager looked up. "We're not the ones who blocked your accounts or cards, sir. It's simply that your balance is actually zero, and your credit card limits are completely maxed out." "Impossible!" Robert shouted. "My salary is thousands of dollars and my limit is hundreds of thousands. I didn't use anything yesterday." "Correct, sir. But our system shows an automatic emergency withdrawal on your business credit line last night, at 12:01 in the morning. That withdrawal drained the entire balance of your payroll account and at the same time, exhausted the remaining limit on all your credit cards." Robert turned pale. "An emergency withdrawal? From whom?" The manager checked the screen again. "It wasn't initiated by us, sir. It was an instruction from the new owner of your credit line." "New owner?" Robert repeated, his voice cracking. "According to our records, the business loan of $4 million that you previously held with our bank was sold 6 months ago to a private capital company called Marianne Corporation. We only act as the agency managing the monthly payments." Robert's heart clenched. Marianne Corporation. Why would they do this? "I've never missed a payment." The manager shook his head. "That's beyond our scope, sir. According to the notice we received last night from Marianne Corporation, you have been declared in breach of contract under the terms of the loan sale agreement. When a breach occurs, Marianne Corporation has the right to forcibly withdraw funds from your accounts as an initial penalty for the delay. And it appears that is exactly what they did." Robert lost his strength and held on to the edge of the desk. How can I be in breach?" "We don't know the details, sir," the manager replied. "They are surely explained in the notarized notice you received. You'll need to speak directly with Marianne Corporation or with their attorneys," he added in a tone as neutral as if he were talking about the weather. Robert staggered out of the bank. The sky seemed to spin and sweat soaked through his shirt. He sat inside his sports car, the car that would be seized in 2 days. His hands trembled uncontrollably. Marianne Corporation. That name again. He pulled out his phone and searched Marianne Corporation online. What appeared was a massive conglomerate. Marianne Corporation, a group operating in luxury fashion, global skincare and real estate. Its logo appeared everywhere. Robert had seen it before but had never paid attention. Why would such a big company buy my miserable debt?" he murmured desperately. Then he remembered the name on the demand letter. Central Legal Group. Summoning the little courage he had left, he called the number listed on the document. "Good morning, this is Robert. I received a notarized notice on behalf of Marianne Corporation. This must be a mistake. I've never breached anything." The voice on the other end was cold and calm. "There is no mistake, Mr. Robert. Our client is acting within the law. You violated Clause 11, Section B of the loan contract you signed." Clause 11, Section B? What is that? If you can't be bothered to read what you sign, Mr. Robert, that clause states that you are required to maintain family harmony and refrain from immoral or dishonorable acts that could harm the image of the business loan. Robert froze. A chill ran through him. That clause is absurd. It has nothing to do with the debt. "Oh, but it does, Mr. Robert. When your loan was sold to our client, all clauses, especially that moral clause, became fully active. Our client places high value on family ethics. Your act of divorcing and throwing out your gravely ill wife, Mrs. Marianne, to go live with another woman constitutes a severe violation of Clause 11, Section B. Robert stopped breathing for a moment. How did you find out? We have irrefutable proof, Mr. Robert. Photos, audio recordings, and witnesses. We know you threw your wife out 2 nights ago. That is the basis for the breach of contract claim. Robert's knees buckled. Marianne. All of this was because of Marianne. But how? How was Marianne connected to Marianne Corporation? What did they want from him? Give me time. I'll pay the installments, Robert begged, shaking. It is already too late. Our client has no interest in installments. According to the notarized notice, you have, let's see, 2 days and 8 hours to pay the $4 million. If you do not, our execution team will seize your house and your car. The call ended. Robert threw his phone against the dashboard and screamed inside the car. $4 million in 2 days. It was impossible. His salary was frozen. His only assets were the house and the car, which turned out not to be his. He tried to think clearly. This is Marianne's doing. But how? Was Marianne working as a cleaner at Marianne Corporation and complained to her boss? No, impossible. That made no sense. He tried to find out who owned Marianne Corporation. He opened a business news site. The owner was anonymous. The company was run by a CEO named Director Alice. Alice. Robert frowned. That name sounded familiar. Suddenly he remembered. Years ago, Marianne had once mentioned an aunt named Alma, a friend from her church group who was an incredible person. Robert had always mocked her. Probably just some neighborhood ladies' club, he'd say. What if that friend from the church group was actually the CEO of Marianne Corporation? Robert's head throbbed. It was too much. He had to find Marianne. He had to beg her. He had to plead with her to withdraw the complaint with Director Alice. Yes, that was the only way. He started the car immediately. He needed to know where Marianne was now. He had to go to her parents' humble home. He had to go right away. As he pulled out of the bank's parking lot, his phone rang. It was Jenna. Robert ignored it. She called again. Annoyed, he answered. What? Where are you, sweetheart? And why are you yelling? Come quickly. The credit card you gave me this morning was declined at the salon too. I'm dying of embarrassment. Do you even have money? Robert slammed the steering wheel. More problems. I have an emergency. What? My money? Oh. Transfer me money right now. I told you I have an emergency. He hung up abruptly. At the salon, Jenna stared at her phone in shock. It was the first time Robert had yelled at her. She began to suspect something was very wrong. Robert no longer thought about Jenna. He sped up. He had to find Marianne. He would get on his knees if he had to. He didn't know that Marianne, the woman he was desperately searching for, was recovering in the private suite of her corporate office on the top floor of MC Tower, reviewing every detail of Robert's panic through reports from her legal team. There was no escape for Robert. The second day was hell. His trip to Marianne's parents' home led nowhere. The house was small and modest, just as he remembered, but Marianne's parents, although poor, looked at him with a mix of hatred and pity. Marianne wasn't there. They didn't know where she was. You threw my daughter out when she was sick, didn't you? Her father asked, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. And now you come looking for her? Get out. And never set foot in this house again. Robert returned to the city empty-handed. The little money left in his emergency account was spent on gas for the trip. That night he and Jenna had a massive argument. He wanted to know what was going on. On the verge of collapsing, Robert confessed. He told her it was an administrative problem and that his accounts were temporarily frozen. Jenna wasn't stupid. She saw the notarized demand letter on the table. 3 days. $4 million. Seizure. You're ruined, Robert. Jenna screamed hysterically. It's temporary. I'll fix it. All of this is Marianne's fault, he yelled. I don't care whose fault it is. I am not living with a poor man. Jenna screamed back. That night they slept turned away from each other in the cold luxury bed. Robert couldn't close his eyes. The countdown echoed in his head. Tomorrow was the third day. The morning of the third day was the most terrifying of his life. The sun rose, but it felt like the end of the world. At 9 o'clock in the morning, while he and Jenna sat eating breakfast in unbearable silence, the doorbell rang. They looked at each other. Both faces went pale. Robert shook his head. "Don't open it. Pretend we're not here." The doorbell rang again, louder this time, followed by pounding. "Mr. Robert, we know you're inside. We are the execution team from Central Legal Group." Robert's heart stopped. Jenna began to cry. "What are we going to do, Robert? What are we going to do?" she sobbed desperately. Terrified, Robert ran to the back door. He thought about escaping through the yard, but when he opened the kitchen door, 2 large security guards were already standing there. "Stay inside, sir," they said firmly. Robert was surrounded. He returned to the living room. When the legal team managed to open the front door with the help of a locksmith they had brought, a man in an impeccable suit entered, holding a folder. Behind him, several court officers carried sealing stickers. "Mr. Robert, your time has ended exactly after 3 days, the lawyer said coldly. "By court order, we will begin the forced seizure of this house and all assets inside it to settle the unpaid debt owed to our client, Marianne Corporation." "No, please give me time," Robert begged, falling to his knees. All his arrogance vanished instantly. "I'll pay, I promise. Just give me 1 more week." The lawyer shook his head. "You were given more than enough time. Our team will begin their work now. You may only take the personal items you are wearing. You have 15 minutes to leave this property voluntarily." 15 minutes? Jenna screamed. In that moment, Jenna finally understood reality. She looked at Robert, who was kneeling on the floor, crying like a child. The man she had believed was a king was now nothing more than a beggar. Jenna's face hardened. She had no intention of sinking with him. Without saying a word, she ran to her room. A confused Robert shouted, "Jenna, where are you going? Help me." The court officers began to enter. They didn't care about the drama. They placed seizure seals from Marianne Corporation on the flat-screen TV, on the luxury sofa, on the expensive paintings. Outside, the sound of a tow truck could be heard arriving to take Robert's sports car away. 5 minutes later, Jenna came downstairs. She was no longer crying. She was dragging 2 huge suitcases. No one knew when she had even packed them. She ignored Robert, who stared at her in desperation, and walked straight toward the front door. "Jenna, are you leaving me?" Robert shouted, his voice breaking. Jenna stopped and turned. Her face was full of hatred. "Leave you? Of course. I'm not living with a loser and a poor man like you. I thought you were a king, but you're just a clown. Enjoy your ruin alone, Robert. I ordered a taxi. Goodbye." Jenna walked out with her suitcases, passing the officers without looking back. Robert froze, betrayed and abandoned, exactly as he had abandoned Marianne 3 days ago. The difference was that he threw Marianne out while she was sick, and Jenna abandoned him at the lowest point of his life. "Your time is up, Mr. Robert," a security guard said, grabbing him by the arm. Robert was dragged out of his own house. They threw him onto the hot sidewalk. He was still in pajamas. He watched as his beloved sports car was towed out of the garage. He watched the door of his house being chained and sealed. Everything was gone. In just 3 days, Robert collapsed helplessly on the curb. Passers-by looked at him with confusion and disgust. The man who had been arrogant was now a joke. He was alone, without money, without a home, without anyone. In his extreme panic, in his indescribable humiliation, his mind could think of only one name. The cause of all this: Marianne. He checked his pockets. His old phone was still there. He no longer knew who to call. He wanted to curse Marianne. He wanted to beg her. He didn't know. He just needed to let it out. With trembling hands, he searched for "Marianne, my wife" in his contacts. He pressed call. He didn't expect her to answer. Maybe the number had changed or the phone was off. But it rang once, twice, and on the 3rd ring it connected. "Hello." It was Marianne's voice, but not the weak, sick voice he remembered. It was calm, clear, and cold. Robert, who was about to scream, suddenly felt small. and he broke down in tears. A cry that shattered him, the cry of a defeated man. Marianne, he sobbed hysterically. Marianne, help me please. I don't know what happened. They seized our house. They took the car. They threw me out. I'm on the street. Marianne, why did this happen? On the 40th floor of MC Tower, inside a VIP suite converted into a temporary office, Marianne sat calmly. She was no longer sick. She was healthy, strong, and incredibly dignified. A satin emerald scarf framed her resolute face. In front of her, Director Alice and several department heads were in a meeting. The old phone Marianne had asked to be brought from home vibrated on the table. On the screen, the name Robert flashed. The meeting stopped. All eyes turned to Marianne. She raised a hand, asking for silence. She looked at Director Alice and gave a faint smile. She pressed speaker so everyone could hear. Robert's hysterical sobbing immediately filled the room. Marianne, help me please. I don't know what happened. They seized our house. They took the car. I'm on the street, Marianne. Why did this happen? Marianne waited for Robert to finish crying. She gestured for everyone to remain silent. The contrast between the quiet conference room and Robert's desperate voice was overwhelming. When he finally stopped, Marianne leaned toward the microphone. She answered with a calm and steady voice, a voice Robert had never heard before. Excuse me, who is this? There was absolute silence on the other end. Robert tried to say, died in his throat. What? Me? Robert. It's me, Marianne, your husband. Mr. Robert, Marianne said with an indifferent tone as if speaking to a stranger. I believe there's a misunderstanding. First, you are no longer my husband. My divorce papers were filed this morning. Robert lost his breath. His throat went dry. It was Marianne's voice, but not the submissive Marianne he had humiliated. It was a voice full of authority. Marianne, where are you? He whispered, terrified. What have you done? Your voice. Are you healthy? I'm in the middle of an important meeting, Marianne replied. She leaned back in her chair, looking at the city through the massive glass window behind her. We're discussing business expansion into the Middle East. Something you wouldn't understand. Business, business. Robert was confused. Marianne, don't say nonsense. Help me, he begged again. I know this is your doing. You must be your friend from that group, Director Alice, right? Yes, you complained to her. Please, Marianne, tell her to stop this. I'll do anything. I'll come back to you. I'll divorce Jenna. I promise. A cold, cynical laugh echoed through the speaker. It was Marianne. Come back to you? Do you really think I would pick up the trash I already threw away? And Jenna, you're late, Robert. She left you an hour ago, right when the execution team arrived. My legal team informed me a moment ago. Robert felt as if a bucket of ice water had been dumped over him. Marianne knew everything. He was watching everything. Who are you? Robert whispered in terror. Who the hell are you, Marianne? Marianne smiled. Do you really want to know, Robert? All those years you lived with me, you insulted me, calling me a sick, useless woman who just played with her phone. You never even wondered what I was actually doing on that phone. What do you mean? Robert asked, trembling. Marianne gestured to Director Alice. He spoke. Hello, Mr. Robert. You are speaking with the board of Marianne Corporation. Robert immediately recognized the calm voice from the demand letter call. Director, why do you have Marianne's phone? What is your connection to my wife? She is not my friend, Robert, Marianne said with icy calm. She's my right hand. The chief executive officer who runs the company for me. The silence grew heavy as lead. Robert struggled to process the information. His eyes burned, but he still tried to understand what he was hearing. Marianne continued, walking toward the window with serene movements. She looked down at the street, exactly where Robert might be sitting like a beggar. You asked who I am, she said without turning from the view. There was a slight tremor in Robert's voice, though he did not dare speak yet. You called the number of your poor wife, the one you abandoned, Marianne continued. But allow me to introduce myself properly. Marianne's voice carried an authority she had never shown before. Hello, Robert. You are speaking with Marianne, the sole owner, founder, and president of Marianne Corporation, the company with a monthly net profit of $1,500,000. The same company that just reclaimed all its assets from you. The phone slipped from Robert's hands and hit the sidewalk with a dull thud. He stood frozen, eyes wide, staring at the hot pavement. For a moment he stopped breathing. His world had not only shattered, it had vanished. Robert collapsed onto the dirty sidewalk, petrified. The phone lay beside him. Even though the screen was cracked, the call was still connected. He could hear Marianne's calm breathing on the other end, so different from the frantic pounding of his own heart. "No, impossible," Robert whispered, his voice broken. "This must be a nightmare. Marianne, you're lying, right? All of this is a lie." Marianne's voice returned, cold, unbothered, sharp. "I don't have time for lies, Robert. I'm busy. But since today is the day of your downfall, I'll give you a moment of my time." There was a pause. Robert kept staring at the pavement as if looking for answers there. "Lift your head, Robert," Marianne ordered. He did, slowly, as if his body weighed tons. He raised his gaze toward the avenue. Across the street stood a towering blue-glass skyscraper. At the top, 3 enormous metallic letters gleamed. "That building," Robert whispered, his throat dry. "Yes," Marianne replied. "Marianne Corporation. I'm on the 40th floor. I can see you clearly from my window. You look so pathetic sitting on the sidewalk. The security guards in that area will kick you out soon." A cold terror ran down Robert's spine. Marianne was watching him from above. "Come to the lobby," she ordered. "I want to see you. I want to see with my own eyes the face of that arrogant man collapsing." The call ended. Robert stayed motionless for a full minute. His body was paralyzed with fear. He had nothing left. The house, the car, Jenna, his reputation, and now his dignity was about to be destroyed. He had no choice. Where else could he go? A mix of morbid curiosity and a foolish hope that he might beg his way out pushed him to his feet. His pajamas were covered in dust, but he still walked toward the glass doors of Marianne Corporation, ignoring honking cars and confused stares. The lobby was another world. Imported marble gleamed like a mirror. An artificial waterfall ran down one wall. Impeccably dressed employees moved with precise efficiency. The cold air conditioning hit his sweaty skin and made him shiver. Robert stood there, planted, disoriented, completely out of place, like a stain on a white canvas. A beautiful receptionist looked at him with a mix of disdain and suspicion. "Excuse me, sir," she said with clear hostility. "Can I help you?" Robert stammered. "I'm here to see Marianne. Mrs. Marianne." The receptionist raised an eyebrow. "President Marianne? Do you have an appointment?" "No, but she asked me to come." "Tell her I'm Robert." "I'm sorry, sir. Without an appointment you cannot enter," she replied, picking up the phone to call security. "Let him through." The firm voice made the receptionist stop. Robert turned around. Director Alice was standing there, accompanied by 2 security guards. Her expression was calm, but her eyes looked at him with icy contempt. "So you're Robert," she said. He recognized her instantly, the woman from Marianne's church group. Director Alice corrected him coldly. "Let me clarify something. I am not her friend from a group. I am her chief executive officer. Now follow me. President Marianne is expecting you." Robert was escorted across the lobby without resistance. All eyes were fixed on him, an unkempt man in dirty pajamas, escorted by the CEO and security guards. Whispering began to spread. He wanted to cover his face from shame, but he no longer had pride left to protect. They did not take him to the main elevator. Director Alice stopped in the VIP waiting area in the center of the lobby. "Wait here. President Marianne will come down." Robert's heart pounded so violently that every beat hurt. He felt like he was sitting in front of his own death sentence. Every second stretched like an eternity. Then the soft sound of the private elevator echoed. The entire lobby froze. Employees stopped moving. The receptionist stopped typing. The guards stood straighter. Some employees even bowed their heads respectfully. The VIP elevator doors opened. Two bodyguards in black stepped out first and took their positions on each side. And then Marianne appeared. Robert lost his breath. It was as if his heart had stopped. This was Marianne, but not the Marianne he had known. The woman walking toward him looked like a queen. She wore a sapphire blue tailored suit that fit her perfectly. A silk scarf in the same shade framed her elegant face. Her skin looked fresh, her makeup subtle yet enhancing her sharp eyes. She walked with a confidence that filled the air. Her heels clicked softly on the marble floor. An aura of power and wealth radiated from her, intimidating and undeniable. Employees bowed their heads as she passed. "Good afternoon, President." Robert trembled. That word, President, pierced right through his chest. Director Alice stepped forward and gave a slight bow. "President, he is waiting." Marianne nodded without taking her eyes off Robert. She walked toward him slowly, crushing his pride with every step. She stopped exactly 1 meter away and examined him from his messy hair to his worn-out sandals. Her gaze was cold, analytical, without a single hint of mercy. "Yes, Robert, it's me," Marianne said, her clear voice echoing through the lobby. "The sick, poor woman you abandoned 3 days ago." Robert couldn't take it anymore. All his strength evaporated. His knees buckled and he collapsed onto the cold marble floor. He knelt before her, crying uncontrollably. "Marianne, I'm sorry, please. I was wrong. I was blind." He tried to grasp Marianne's jacket, but his hands trembled too much and slipped. Everyone watching was stunned. The scene was shocking. A man crying hysterically at the feet of the president of a corporation. The bodyguards stepped forward, but Marianne raised a hand, ordering them to stop. She wanted him to feel every second of this humiliation. "Forgive me, Marianne. Give me our house back, please. I'll divorce Jenna. I'll be your husband again." Marianne looked at him without a trace of emotion. There was no pity, no anger, only a frozen void. She leaned down slightly, not to help him but to whisper. "Stand up," she ordered. Her voice was low, yet carried an authority so firm it made anyone shiver. With the little strength he had left, Robert managed to stand, shaking. His face was covered in tears and sweat, barely able to hold himself upright. Marianne stared straight into his eyes without a drop of compassion. "Do you want to beg?" she asked, her voice now loud enough for everyone around them to hear clearly. "What a shame, Robert. My corporation does not hire beggars." After saying that, Marianne took a silk handkerchief from her purse. For a moment, Robert thought she might offer it to him to wipe his tears. But no. Marianne simply used the handkerchief to brush away an imaginary speck of dust from her own sleeve, as if she had touched something filthy, as if he were a contaminated object. "My company," she repeated firmly, "does not hire beggars." With that, she turned with absolute elegance and walked back toward the elevator. "Director Alice, handle him," Marianne ordered without looking back. "Give it to him as a final lesson." "Understood, President," Director Alice replied. The elevator doors closed softly and Marianne disappeared from sight. Robert remained frozen as if nailed to the floor, destroyed by a humiliation he never imagined he could suffer, far worse than losing his house or his car. Director Alice approached him with firm steps. "Come on, Mr. Robert, let's finish this. There is something Mrs. Marianne wants you to see." "What else? What else are you going to take from me?" Robert shouted, desperate, almost breathless. "This is not about taking more," the director replied. "It is about making you understand how incredibly stupid you have been all this time." 2 security guards approached him, grabbed him by the arms and dragged him toward a luxurious conference room on the mezzanine level. They shoved him into a chair, leaving him there in the cold, silent room. A huge glass window allowed a full view of the lobby from inside, and allowed everyone in the lobby to see him as well. Robert felt more exposed than ever. Director Alice sat across from him, accompanied by 2 impeccably dressed men, undoubtedly attorneys. Robert lowered his head, staring at the marble floor. He felt he had nothing left. Nothing to defend. Nothing to lose. "Mr. Robert," the director began. You still do not understand how the wife you called useless, poor and sickly, Mrs. Marianne, could be the owner of absolutely everything you have seen today. Robert did not respond. He had no strength left. The director pressed a button on the table. From the ceiling, a huge screen descended and the lights dimmed slightly. As soon as the screen lit up, a large, clear title appeared. Business and Financial Report of MC Holdings. All right, the director said. Let's begin the lesson. Let's go back 5 years. Charts, balance sheets, enormous figures, income statements, all began appearing on the screen, making Robert's eyes burn. 5 years ago, she explained, you had just been fired from your first job. You were depressed, angry, blaming the entire world. While you complained, searched for work, and cursed your bad luck, your wife, the woman you always saw as just a simple housewife, began working from the kitchen. Robert lifted his head slightly, confused. And she was not cooking for you, the director added as if reading his thoughts. She was formulating skincare products using herbal recipes passed down through her family. When you mocked her for staying glued to her phone until late at night, she was actually responding to hundreds of orders from her first customers. Robert's face tensed. When you finally found a new job and began feeling superior, she rented a small office to build her first production space. The screen changed, showing photographs. A tiny office, then a larger warehouse, then a modern, spacious, professional factory. Images of MC Holdings branches in London, Paris, Shanghai, and Tokyo appeared as well. MC Holdings, Mr. Robert, the director said. It means Marianne Corporation. Marianne is your wife's name. This company, this building, every asset, belongs to her. 100%. Robert's trembling worsened. But how? The money? He asked, barely able to speak. The director smiled coldly. You always underestimated her because she never asked for anything, didn't she? You were proud to give her a monthly allowance of $3. And when you got angry, you even cut it. You called her poor. She pressed another button. A massive number appeared on the screen. $1,500,000. This, she said, is Mrs. Marianne's personal monthly net income. It went straight to an account under her name. An account you never even knew existed. Robert felt the blood drain from his face. An income far greater than that of your own company's director, she continued. And yet you insulted her and threw her out of your house, accusing her of being poor. The world began to spin around him. And your debt, the director added with surgical precision. The business loan of $4 million that you took to buy that house and that luxury car. Robert's eyes widened as if he had been struck. When your side businesses were mismanaged and you were about to fall into bankruptcy, that loan went delinquent. The bank was ready to seize all your assets. But Mrs. Marianne found out. Through me, MC Holdings purchased the entirety of your debt. We paid it off completely. Robert sat motionless, unable to breathe. So that house and that car have belonged to MC Holdings for an entire year, Mr. Robert. She chose not to tell you so she wouldn't destroy you. She allowed you to keep living there, to keep boasting, to keep feeling successful. She respected you as her husband. She hoped you would change. Tears began falling down Robert's face again. They were not tears of remorse but of pure, stubborn stupidity. She knew that he muttered. That you had another woman, Director Alice finished. Of course she knew. She knew everything. One of the attorneys stepped in. And now, Mr. Robert, let's look at the evidence. The screen changed again, this time showing recordings. First appeared the living room of the house. Robert tenderly hugging Jenna on the couch 6 months earlier, right when Marianne had to travel for work. The video shifted to the bedroom. Jenna trying on Marianne's clothes and scarves, laughing, throwing them on the floor, and Robert laughing with her as if it were a game. Then came the last video. The most devastating one. 3 days ago. The same bedroom. Robert standing at the foot of the bed. Marianne weak lying down. And his voice dripping with contempt. Hey, you sick, useless woman, I already have the divorce papers ready. Tomorrow you're getting out of this house. Stop. Robert shouted, covering his face with both hands. Please stop it. The screen turned off. Silence swallowed the room. Hidden cameras, the attorney said calmly. Mrs. Marianne installed them a year ago when she began suspecting you had another woman. Robert was destroyed. She's going to put me in jail, he whispered. That was the original plan, Director Alice replied. We had charges for verbal abuse, abandonment, and adultery. Enough to put you in prison for years. A chill ran through his spine. But Mrs. Marianne changed her mind. She said prison would be too comfortable for you. She wants you to live through something worse. She placed a thin folder in front of him. This is Mrs. Marianne's official divorce petition. It also includes the claim for emotional damages. Robert opened the folder with trembling hands. Mrs. Marianne wasn't asking for asset division. She didn't want to take his dirty money. She had only reclaimed the house and the car that belonged to her. But he still had to pay for his actions. Robert's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets when he saw the amount in the claim. $450,000. $450,000, he screamed desperately. I don't have money. They took everything from me. Of course you don't, Director Alice replied coldly, a frozen smile forming on her face. But you still have your job, don't you? He paused, pretending to remember something. Oh, almost forgot. Her smile widened. Breaking news, Mr. Robert. 1 hour ago, MC Holdings completed the acquisition of 70% of the shares of the company you work for. What? And as the new majority shareholder, she continued in a serene tone, President Marianne's first order is a full leadership reorganization. Your termination letter is already signed. She looked him straight in the eyes. You are officially fired. That was the final nail in Robert's coffin. He had lost absolutely everything. His house, his car, his wife, his savings, and now his job, the very source of his pride. You're monsters. Robert shouted, his voice cracking. We are simply delivering justice, the director replied. And regarding that $450,000 damages claim, Mrs. Marianne has been very kind. She knows you will never be able to pay it, so she is giving you an option. The director slid another sheet of paper toward him. Sign this statement. Robert lowered his gaze. It was a confession, admitting his adultery, his verbal abuse, and his abandonment. If you acknowledge your actions, the director explained, the debt will be forgiven. He stared at the paper. It was the last shred of pride he had left. And what do you need this for? He mumbled. One of the attorneys responded calmly. Just as a safeguard. So you don't go around spreading false stories. Robert had no escape. Fired, bankrupt, homeless. With trembling hands he took the pen they offered and signed the confession of all his actions. It's done, Director Alice said, gathering the documents swiftly. At that moment the conference room door opened. Marianne entered again. She stopped in front of Robert, who remained with his head bowed, defeated, destroyed. Did you divorce me, Robert? She asked quietly. Did you throw divorce papers at me while I was sick? Marianne pulled out the same folder he had thrown at her in their bedroom. Director Alice had kept it. Right before Robert's eyes, Marianne slowly tore apart the divorce petition he had filed. The pieces fell onto his lap one by one. I'm the one divorcing you now, she said with absolute coldness. And I promise you won't walk away with a single cent. She gave him one last look. Get out of my building. The 2 guards who had accompanied her earlier entered immediately. Remove this trash, ordered the director. Robert didn't resist. He was already completely numb. They grabbed him and dragged him away. They pulled him across the lobby full of employees. Everyone stared at him with a mix of pity and disgust. The automatic glass doors opened and Robert was thrown onto the hot pavement. He fell with no money, no job, no home, dressed only in dirty pajamas. Ironically, the only thing he had left was a signed confession clearing him of his debt. His downfall was now complete. For the second time that day, Robert collapsed onto the blistering pavement. The glass doors of MC Tower closed behind him, separating him from the luxurious world he had just discovered belonged to Marianne. He coughed. Street dust entered his throat. His face was soaked with tears, sweat, and grime. For a moment he didn't move. His body was paralyzed. His mind couldn't process how his life had been destroyed so quickly and so perfectly. Fired, bankrupt, abandoned by his lover, publicly humiliated by the wife he had called trash. The confession he had just signed felt like a death sentence. Passers-by looked at him strangely. A man in filthy pajamas crying in front of a luxury building. A security guard stood at the doorway watching to make sure he didn't try to come back inside. Robert knew he had to leave. He couldn't sit there forever. With the little strength he had left, he got up. His knees trembled. He began to walk aimlessly. Where could he go? He had no home. He checked his pockets. Empty. His broken phone had been left in the lobby when they dragged him out. Now he had absolutely nothing but the clothes on his back. His stomach growled. He was hungry. The last time he'd eaten was that tense breakfast with Jenna. Hours had passed. The sun was starting to set in the west. The air was hot and suffocating. He remembered his friends. His party friends. Maybe they could lend him money. He walked several miles to the cafe where they usually met. He entered, his face full of shame. Some of his friends were there. "Robert, my God, what happened to you?" one asked, shocked by his appearance. Robert told a distorted version of everything. "They set me up, man. My accounts are frozen. Lend me some money." The friend who had initially looked concerned suddenly went cold. "Sorry, Robert. The news already spread in the group chat. You got fired, didn't you? NMC Holdings seized your assets." Robert froze. "How do you know?" "Everybody knows. You messed with Marianne Corporation. You're insane." "Sorry, Robert, but I can't help you. I don't want trouble with them." And he left quickly. The other friends pretended not to see him. Robert was left alone in the middle of the cafe. The waiter kicked him out without hesitation. He returned to the street more humiliated than ever. Now he was a pariah. Nobody wanted contact with him for fear of Marianne's shadow. Night fell. Robert was still hungry. He curled up in front of a closed store, using his arms as a pillow. He shivered from the cold. The buzzing of mosquitoes and the smell of the sewers accompanied him as he tried to sleep. This was his instant karma. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, Jenna was in a panic. She had managed to escape Robert's house with 2 suitcases full of clothes and designer bags. She rented a cheap room in a motel. She began contacting other rich men from her list. She needed to find a replacement fast. "Hello, Mr. Henderson, it's Jenna. Are you busy? Want to have dinner?" she asked in a flirtatious voice over the phone. "Jenna? Who's Jenna?" the man replied. "Oh, sir, it's Jenna. We met at the party." "Oh, Jenna, Robert the ruined man's girlfriend. I see." The man's voice changed instantly. "Sorry, I'm busy now. Don't call again." And he hung up. Jenna froze. He called another man. The answer was the same. The news of Robert's downfall had spread like wildfire. And with him, Jenna's name was dragged down as well. Now she was the disgraced mistress. Her reputation in luxury circles was destroyed. No one wanted to be near her. But her bad luck didn't end there. As she cried in her motel room, someone knocked on the door. 2 men in impeccable suits were standing there. "Miss Jenna, we're from Central Legal Group." They handed her a court summons. Jenna's heart stopped. Marianne had sued her. The charges: adultery, defamation, and destruction of private property. The demanded compensation was $1 million. $1 million, she screamed hysterically. She didn't have that kind of money. All her clothes and bags had been gifts from Robert. The following days became a nightmare for both villains. Jenna was left with nothing. She couldn't even afford a lawyer. She began selling her designer bags one by one, practically giving them away, just to survive and pay for the motel room. Robert, after 3 days of hunger and sleeping on the street, finally swallowed his pride. He needed to eat. He walked to Borough Market where the loaders worked. His once attractive face was now dirty. A neglected, patchy beard had grown across his cheeks. "Sir, do you need help?" he asked the foreman of the loaders. The foreman looked him up and down. "You look way too clean for this job. Can you lift sacks of rice?" "I'm strong, sir. I need to eat," Robert begged, his voice cracking. Move those rice sacks from there to the truck. I'll pay you $1.50 per sack. And so began Robert's new life. The man who once wore spotless shirts and drove a luxury sports car now sweated under the scorching sun, hauling sacks of rice that weighed dozens of pounds. His body, once toned from gym memberships, was now thin and worn out. His skin was burned by the sun, darkened and dirty. His muscles stood out not from workouts at an expensive club, but from endless hard labor. His back hurt constantly and his hands were covered in blisters and cuts. He had long forgotten the smell of a clean shirt or expensive cologne. All he knew now was the stench of sweat, market trash and cheap tobacco. And what about Jenna? Robert no longer cared. The last rumor he heard from other loaders was that Jenna, after losing her lawsuit against Marianne, had sunk deep into debt. To survive, she ended up working as a waitress in a late-night bar. Word was that a few weeks ago she had been arrested during a raid. Her fate ended up far worse than simple poverty. She was utterly destroyed. Robert felt no pity. He felt nothing at all. His heart was already dead. He worked like a machine. Lift a sack, get paid, buy rice, sleep. That was the only cycle left in his life. That afternoon, after 12 hours of non-stop work, Robert received his pay for the day, $50 in wrinkled bills. He left the market dragging his aching legs. He stopped at his usual food stand. "1 plate of rice with sides to go, ma'am," he said. With the food bag in hand, he walked to a large intersection. He sat on the dirty curb, leaning his back against a traffic light pole. He opened the bag containing the only dinner he would have that day. Across the street, a giant screen on the side of a building lit up suddenly. It was broadcasting a live business news program. Robert stopped bringing the rice to his mouth. The plastic spoon froze in the air. On that giant screen appeared Marianne's face. It was a live transmission of MC Holdings' global launch event from that morning. Marianne's clean, serene, composed face filled a screen several stories tall. A foreign journalist asked a question in English, which appeared translated on the screen. "President Marianne, you are currently one of the richest and most influential women in Asia. What is the secret to your success?" Robert held his breath. He saw Marianne smile faintly. "There is no secret," she replied. Her voice echoed across the intersection. "I simply never stopped working. I never stopped believing in my abilities, not even when the person closest to me underestimated me and called me useless." The food bag slipped from Robert's hands. The rice and side dishes spilled across the dirty sidewalk. But he didn't care. His eyes were fixed on the screen. Up there, almost touching the sky, the woman he once called sickly and poor was being interviewed like a global business queen. And down here on the scorching pavement, the man who once thought he was a king sat like a beggar, staring at the remains of his dinner mixed with dust. Robert lowered his head until his chin nearly touched his chest. He didn't cry. He laughed. A dry, empty laugh full of despair. He had lost. Not just his money. Not just his status. He had lost everything. The woman he abandoned now had the entire world at her feet and he had nothing. Not even the dignity to pick up the rice he had dropped. Karma had done its job. If this story touched your heart, please support us by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. New stories are already waiting for you on your screen.